Hey guys, what's up? This is the College Football Experience. We are here.
And here we go with another episode of the College Football Experience. We are the College Football Experience. I am Gus. This is Cody. And we're here to talk a little about what happened week one. There's a lot of big games, some kind of upset, some results that we were not expecting, and then take a look at what's going to happen in week two. Well, what we think is going to happen in week two. Cody, I ain't talked to you on here in a minute, brother. I've missed you. How you been?
Doing good, man. It hasn't been a minute. We all got stuff going on, but
Busy.
college football is back and we are ready to freaking talk. I'm ready to talk it with you.
Ready to go, dude. Ready to go, man. It was a pretty wild week one. You had Clemson go down to Georgia. You had LSU go down to Southern Cal. You had A&M go down to Notre Dame. And then, of course, you had, unfortunately, the Gators go down to the Hurricanes. Let's start with the Georgia versus Clemson game. I mean, there's really not that much to break down because it was a slaughter. I mean, you had the final score 34-3. It went to half 6-0. So the Dogs, I think, kind of just imposed their will in the second half. How good did Carson Beck look to you, and how bad did the Clemson offense look?
Yeah, so I think for me, we had talked about it a little bit between ourselves and through the group. I expected Clemson to have a closer game, like especially, we
I
kind of
did too.
compared it to that Oregon last year where Georgia fans like, we beat the piss out of Oregon, we're going to beat the piss out of Clemson. And I was kind of I don't know if it's kind of like my hatred towards them, but I was just kind of saying like it's not going to be that same way, man. This is a different group because Clemson's defense is going to be good, and the DL is different than that team they faced in Oregon. And it first started kind of like I thought it was going to, man. You mentioned the first half being close, and it was like I could see this ramping up a little bit, but not getting crazy and like it did, of course. But I think you were spot on, man. They outpowered them, and
Yeah.
the two quarterbacks look kind of really different. I mean, Cade didn't hit on much last year, and he didn't really hit on much this year.
No, I mean, I'm almost to the point where I'm gonna say he's a bust. I mean, he just doesn't have it. He looks like he gets really jittery in the pocket. He looks like he can't comprehend what's going on the field. And I mean, I haven't ever played the position. It's just going off of what I see and what I hear people that have played and people that do know the game a lot better than me say. But he just doesn't look like he has it. And it's really easy to miss on a quarterback us because they go to these high schools where they're going to outman everyone. There's rosters are going to be better. They're going to have so much time. They go to these 7-on-7 camps where it's not real football. You're
Right.
throwing on air. But when you get in a real game with the real college players going against one of the best teams, I mean, you're either going to have it or you're not. And I think we have a big enough sample size with Cade now in this Garrett Riley offense where I just don't think he has it. And
Yeah.
he does have a lot better wide receivers that we talked about. He does have a healthy offensive line that we talked about. So I mean, I just think with this Clemson offense, with this Clemson team, he's probably the focal point of the issues at the moment.
Yeah, and you mentioned Riley, and it's almost like you would think if a guy truly is talented, he either finds his way on his own or through an OC, and you just
Mhm.
don't see it with Cade, and that kind of sucks if I'm a Clemson fan, all the talk about DJ, and then you go to Cade and he comes in and he looks pretty good, but you,
He just
you
doesn't
like you
have it.
well, like you hit on, I think we've seen enough to know that it's just not it, and
Mhm.
I at least thought the defense would be able to hold Georgia down. And we all knew Georgia was going to win. That
Yeah.
wasn't the question in my mind. The question was more, can you slow Georgia down to a pace of at least being able to hang there? And for the first half, they did. The problem
Mhm.
is no offense. You can't
Yeah.
win without an offense. I mean, it's
100%.
defense wins championships, but you got to be able to score. So I'm with you on that.
And I mean, I think Carson Beck looked apart. I think from a talent standpoint, I think he's probably developed into what we're going to see as probably the best Georgia quarterback since Matthew Stafford. Just from an overall talent wise that's been developed. I mean, he also is going to have one of the best rosters. So that does
He's
play.
really, really well rounded. You know, you look at some of the past guys and they kind of lean either one way or another. He looks like he's got the IQ matched with the athleticism. And
Mhm.
you know, I hate on them guys a lot, but props to Carson, you know, as
Oh,
far
yeah.
to the program, learning that system and, you know,
Mhm.
time to shine. So he definitely shined Saturday.
Yeah, because whenever we went to SEC Nation this past weekend when we went to Gainesville, we saw the little segment where he was like, "I was this close to quitting. Like I was so close to quitting," which is just even though I hate Georgia, it's honestly an inspiring story of what sticking
Oh, for
to it,
sure.
especially in this age of
In this
football
era.
where
Yeah,
where
man.
if you don't get your way, you're just going to pitch a fit and leave instead of sticking it out and doing it right.
Mhm.
I just think that's such a I mean, that's just such an inspiration to be able to see someone stick it out, do what our generation thinks is the right thing to do, and
Yeah. And
then
I
to
mean,
be successful.
it's helpful that they're the best team in the country. I mean,
That
it's
is
it's
true.
easy to say, "Hey, I'll stay here when I know I'm gonna compete." But I props to him. I got a bad taste in my mouth from Carson. I still do because the way, he kinda used Florida to get a scholarship from Georgia, but that's, water under the bridge, and I think, moving forward, you learn that, Georgia's still here, so
Yeah, and I mean, from one SEC team dominating to another SEC team going down, Southern Cal looked good on the defensive side of the ball in a win versus LSU. I think I think both I think both of my thoughts on these teams was kind of validated. Even though I thought LSU was going to win, they didn't look bad. And
right.
I mean, I think that if you're a USC fan, you got to be ecstatic. You have to be so happy with the way that DeAnton Lynn was able to turn that defense around. It is only a one game sample size, but from the way the offense looked to the way the defense played, I mean, you got to be ecstatic if you're a USC fan. And then if you're an LSU fan, I don't think you can be that upset either. I mean, the only thing you could be upset about was the way your team played in the red zone. That's it. I mean,
Right.
that's the only thing you could really be mad about.
Yeah, and, to toot my own horn, I was the only one to pick USC in both of my
Sure.
groups, and not that I know more than anyone else. I just expected LSU to show up, and I expected a really good game, so
Hmm.
typically, if I'm gonna go with a close game, I just kinda go with my gut, and it just happened to be right, but you hit it dead on the nose, is like, if you're an LSU fan, you shouldn't feel bad. If you're a USC fan, you shouldn't get too excited. It's
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
both teams are really good. Both
They
teams,
really played great.
I mean, Nussmeier looked great. That offensive line, I still, it's hard on one game, but for them to be as good as they are, and for SC to be able to slow that running game down,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah.
And you talked about Lynn coming in, and he's completely flipped that defense. And
Yeah.
we've always said,
Seems to be that way.
yeah, and we've always said if Riley can get a defense, it's going to be trouble. It's the same with Lane, because if you can
Mhm.
score and stop them, I mean that's the recipe of the game. So
Yeah.
I do think, obviously it sucks with LSU with Emory going down for the year, but
Oh, yeah.
they're still going to be really good. And props to both of those quarterbacks, because I mean they came in and
They
for a
both
big
balled.
game and both balled. I think one of the takeaways that I had was another star, another beginning season of BK losing, and I
Yeah.
think that's crazy to me, because he really is a good coach, and
Oh,
to
yeah.
lose, I mean, it's just wild. But that was a good one.
Yeah. I mean, his first time he played FSU, that was kind of fluky.
Mhm.
The second time they played FSU, that was just a better FSU team.
Right.
Hands down, that was a better FSU team. I don't know if you played this game again 100 times, how I would probably it would be close to a 50-50.
I think so too.
I mean,
I think just watching it felt really 50-50.
I would maybe favor LSU. Probably they'd win maybe 60-40% of the time.
Right.
But I mean, this I think was the best game of the weekend, and I think really gave us hope and excitement going forward in the season with these two teams. One team that kind of disappointed me was the Texas A&M Aggies, man. I mean, they go down at home to the Fighting Irish 23-13. And I mean, they just I don't think we've seen enough from Connor Wegman yet, but he was the most disappointing part of this game. I think he completed like right around 50% of his passes. I think just a little less.
Mhm.
And I mean, for how good that defensive line was supposed to be, they didn't push around the Notre Dame offensive line like we expected with all of their overturn. And I mean, props to Notre Dame for going in there and getting through a couple nasty first 3 quarters and then really hitting it hard in the
Mhm.
4th.
Yeah, not it was another game that I picked right. I picked a lot of wrong ones. I picked this one right, and the reason I felt like Notre Dame had the edge was strictly because I felt like I don't know, man. The DC they have mixed, with a defensive minded head coach. They're typically going to be pretty strong to overcome, and I just like. I mean, the quarterback you bring in. I like the. You talked about going against that defensive line. My biggest takeaway from this though was, David Pollock had talked about how good Wagman was, and then he looks like a freaking average Joe out there, and
Yeah.
that was kind of crazy. I'm still high on A&M. I think they'll figure it out. I think
Yeah.
first
They
game,
could.
first head coach, and you play a really good team.
It's tough.
Um, I still like A&M, and I still think they're going to be, a team you don't really want to see. And
Mhm.
my Gators just got them in a couple weeks, but give props to Notre Dame too, man, because I think a lot of people are counting them out and thinking Sam Hartman's gone, and it's just not the same team, and this, that, and the third. And I mean, they showed up so
Yeah.
against a good team, good
Yeah.
defense.
And I mean, we do have to cut Connor Wegman some slack because he was going against a really good secondary, like
Yeah,
a really, really, really
that
good
defense is stout,
secondary.
man.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, just I think this showed more about Notre Dame than it
Mm.
did about Texas A&M.
Yeah, I
So it
think that's a good point. Yeah,
yeah,
I would agree.
because it cleared up some of the concerns from the Texas A&M offensive line. They didn't give up a sack.
Yeah,
They didn't let Riley Leonard get sacked, but they had a tackle for loss on him, but they didn't have a sack on him, which is
yeah.
strange.
I
Um,
think if you switch the quarterbacks, man, it
it could
just
be
sound I don't know what they see in Wagman so far. I mean, yeah,
Mhm,
it's you would argue, hey, it's only one game, but we've seen him previous, and he's looked good at sometimes, but he's looked bad at sometimes. I think if you
mhm.
were to give them a better quarterback, they would be dangerous. I think it's more Wagman is holding them down rather than you know Texas A&M being as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and does he fit the Cullen Klein system? Probably
yeah,
not.
yeah. That's what I mean. I look at him as being the true issue is if you had to point to something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
everybody around them is good. The OL is pretty good. They've got really good receivers. They've got a decent back. The defense is really stout. And when it
Mhm.
comes down to it, it's Connor that's to me that's really holding them down. But
Yeah.
we know he'll progress. So
Yeah, and it is only week 1. There's tons
right,
of time for all these teams to
for
get so
sure.
much better, but props to Notre Dame for coming down in a really hot stadium week 1 to almost kind of put their season on the line because they only got a couple big games, and a kind of weak schedule, so to be able to do that and to come out with the win, that's big. One last game, you probably don't wanna talk about it. The
We can
Miami
skip.
Hurricanes, man, go into the swamp, and I was able to witness it. They kinda put a stomping on the Gators.
Man,
41-17. It was tough.
I've got I could do a whole show on this game. You know, I went to every single home game last year,
Mm-hmm.
and then we went to LSU as a away game.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, you know, you deal with some really good games, and you'll have games that you wish it was like, man, I wish that sucked. I wasn't able to go to this one, and looking back, man, I'm like, I'm
I'm
glad I
glad
didn't
you
go to
did.
this one. And that sounds terrible because as a fan, like the win loss doesn't matter. It's experience and being there for your team. But the way Florida looked was it looked really bad, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I said, I could go on and on. They just looked unprepared. They looked outmatched, really bad. OL and DL was just not. You're getting no push on either side. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you have that one big run. Outside of that, it was like nothing.
Nothing.
And then
Yeah.
you know, Mertz gets smacked. Now he's concussed. Some may say it's a blessing in disguise. I mean, obviously, you never want a guy to get hurt, but now that
Yeah.
you're forced to play DJ, we'll see kind of where that leads us to. But it
Mm-hmm.
seemed like Miami had our number from the jump, man. Like
Dude.
it's like whatever we were doing, they knew exactly what it is. And I worry with that offense, man. I worry
Mm-hmm.
that you know bringing a guy in motion, seeing if they're in man or see if they're in zone. You got jet sweeps, you got tosses, you know, handing off to the running back. You got options, you got bubbles. But as far as pushing it down the field,
They really don't have it.
I don't see it, and it scares me. And I know that the wide receivers are, you know, they're average, a little, you know, here or there. You could point to good and bad, but overall, man, Miami just came in and smacked the piss out of us. That's just
Looked
what it is.
good.
Looked real good. I mean,
They
and
looked really, really good. All of the offseason hype that they had been given, they kind of showed up and proved everyone right. But this is something we've said for the past 3 games. It is only week 1.
it
We
is, but
don't know these
now that
teams'
we've seen the
full stories.
ACC, it's almost like, man, you gotta, like, put them right at the top because
Oh, they're
now that Florida State's
100% the class
down,
of the ACC
Clemson
this year.
looks average. It's them, you know, and props to Miami. I mean, you know, Cam Ward was a big piece, obviously. I mean, that's
Massive.
huge. Everybody wanted him, top QB, and he looked like he was just playing backyard football, man, like, scrambling with no care, tossing it, no care, like, they shredded us. That's just what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that was something that, I was gonna touch on. Cam Ward, even though we had seen him at Washington State for the past couple years, he looked smooth. He
Yeah, and
looked
well, he's got a
he
lot of
looked like a
experience too.
well-oiled.
Like you got
Yeah.
to think he's went through some time. I mean, you
Mhm.
go not just from school to school, but like different levels of the school and
Yeah.
different types of competition, and he's been
Mhm.
able to build on that.
Mhm.
And I don't really like his attitude. Like I don't really like the his demeanor. I know that you know you want to be confident as a quarterback. I really like some of the ways he comes off, but like you said, we had heard all off season for the last however long, Miami's back. Miami's back. Here's Miami. Got worry about Miami. And I think part of me,
Well,
man, was still in that mindset of like, you got to show me.
yeah.
And they did, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I think they looked solid on the offensive line. I think they looked really good on the defensive line. They were able to get tons of pressure on Mertz. Sometimes I think too
Their
much.
DL was great, dude.
Yeah. And could things have went a different way for Florida? Yes, but I think at the end of the day, after being able to watch it, I think either way that the Hurricanes are going to win.
You know, you talked
Um,
about simulating them 100 times. That's one that
I
Florida
would
don't get a
say
lot.
probably 85 to 90% of the
Yeah,
time.
that one
The
hurts. And before we go move forward, man, I haven't been hurt on a game in a long time.
Mhm.
I was hurt on that one, and, you know, I
Well,
know a lot of the fan base was, but that's
well,
tough.
just because it's a culmination of hurt that's not just from the game.
Yeah,
It's year 3 of the Billy Napier era. It's kind of like a nut up or shut up time.
right.
Like he has even said it all throughout the offseason. This is nothing left over from a previous regime. This
Yeah,
is all me. And if everything that was put out on the field was you, And brother, it ain't good.
Yeah, and I think it hurts too that you look across the field and that guy's been there same time. And it's
Yeah.
like they're out recruiting us. Now they're
Mhm.
out playing us.
Mhm.
They're now they beat your tail and then walking off, they're chirping at the recruit saying, "Why would you come
That's
here?" And
tough.
you how can
That's
you
tough.
blame them?
Yeah. Yeah.
It hurts, man. And I think it hurts mostly for me because you go the last 2 years having a rough year and you're like, dude, we're going to get there. And so
Mhm.
you're at a clean slate. Everybody's 0-0,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And you take a loss like that, it makes you feel like
Yeah.
I don't even want to watch it no more.
And you have to look at the effort level of the players. You could tell about halfway through the second quarter that the Florida players, they were
That was
cooked.
it.
They were
Yeah, and everybody
mentally
keeps hitting on
beat.
the defense, man, and they're like, "Oh, defense still sucks." They got slaughtered in it. I think the defense played pretty well to start, but they
Yeah.
also were kind of put it back out there, and then they do their job and then put back out there. I mean, we get a turnover and get a field goal out of it, and
Yeah.
we're in good position. So it's like I don't uh I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like I don't support giving up as a player. Like you can't just go out there and say, "Well, they're gonna score on us again." But also kind of understand, like if I'm a defensive guy, we're sitting here doing our job, and then every time we're turning the ball
Just
3 and
getting
out.
physically and mentally drained.
That's tough, man. And
Yeah, it
and
is.
I'm hoping, there's a lot of fire around Billy right now. I'm hoping that Miami was just better than we expected,
Yeah.
and Florida's still good, and we can prove that.
Yeah.
But I'm hurt, man, for sure.
Yeah. Totally understand that. There's still a lot of ball to play. It is only week 1, like we've said for the rest of these games. I mean, there's still a whole script of this season to be written. And going back and looking at the standings from week 1 from the pick'ems, the man who won week 1 last year, Spencer Shams, back to back week
Uh,
1 champions, 50 points of a total where the max you could get is 55. Spencer missed one game. He went 9-1 for 50 points. Other pretty decent performance. You had people with 45-point weeks. There were a couple 40s. I I finished 5-5, 35 points. I
well,
had a rough
to
week.
your
I had a
no,
rough
to your
week.
credit, guys, the first week it's tough, man, because you don't
But still.
you're kinda going on hearsay, like, you're kinda just
Yeah.
I mean, you can research, you can talk to the coach himself. I mean, I won't say that. You can talk to people around the program and get a feel
Mhm.
for the game, but you
No.
can't know until you see them. So, like, at
No.
least now we got a feel of, like, "Okay, I've seen this
And
team. I've seen that team."
I did have LSU at 7, and I think I had Texas A&M high as well. So
Bro, I
those
had
2.
Miami or yeah, I think it was 7 or 8, and then that morning, I was hyped, dude. I was like, "Nah,
Yeah,
we're
you were
winning
like,
this."
you're
I was
yeah,
like, "Ah."
just freaking going at it. And then Will also finished 5-5, but he finished with 39 points, and you finished 6-4 with 38 points. So there's still lots of time, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
I'm already in the hole. I'm already in the hole, and but our winner from last season, Nick, finished 4-6
Yeah,
with a
we're on the
losing
upclimb.
record.
We're on the upclimb.
Losing record.
And, I know we're about to talk week 2. I think week 2 is gonna trip some people up, man. I think there's some scary games in there.
There are, but I feel like I kind of feel good about this week.
Yeah?
I I kind of feel pretty good about this week. Let's go ahead and jump into the first game. Texas goes on the road. This is a big game. This in my eyes, if everything would have played out, this should have been the national championship game last season from who was in the playoffs. But Texas, of course, squandered the semifinal game. That's the last year. This is just this year. Texas 7.5 point favorite going on the road to the Wolverines. Man, this is the biggest game of the season so far. This has ginormous amounts of playoff implications. Texas, their first chance to go on the road and represent the SEC. I have a pretty tough stance on this game. Who do you think is going to win, Cody?
So, I got some notes on this one. You mentioned the big, matchup It is the first top 5 non-con at the Big House since 1991, which
That's a
is
good
when
stat.
Florida State came in and smacked them. I think for me, man, looking at the game just kind of from an outside point of a college football fan, I think the just glaring matchup to me is that Texas wide receiver group versus that Michigan DB group.
Mhm.
Last year, Texas had those 3 guys that, they left and now they get 3 more. They get them from the portal. They get Bond and Matthew Golden and then Silas Bolden, one from Houston, one from Oregon State. And all 3 of those guys looked good last week.
Mhm.
So I like to see that against, Michigan. We all know Michigan's defense and Will Johnson and how good he is. But
Stud.
he gave up like 77 yards last
Yeah.
week, which is not. I mean, that's not terrible, but for a guy that they has got him as elite, he did have the pick 6.
Mhm.
But that's going to be something to watch from me. And then I look at Michigan, and I think, at least for the recent years, we kind of all have a picture in our mind of Michigan. But now Harbaugh's gone, so it's like, how much of Michigan are we going to see of the norm? I think of a pound and ground, just run it down your throat type team.
Mhm.
Um, so another fun fact for you is Michigan had 100 fewer passing yards last year. They had 8 wins with it, which is like, I think the only other teams that have had that many is like Iowa and a couple
Mhm.
academies. So to throw for 150 or less and still win is like, that tells you like, hey, we're going to run the ball.
It's a
But
really physical team.
the OL is different. It's new now, and
Mhm.
even though Michigan has had a good OL the last 2 years, that's one thing that takes time to mesh. So like last week, they didn't look bad, but can they mesh for that Texas DL? Because that's a different breed.
It is.
That's not a no name. So they replaced 6 OL. They replaced Blake Corum.
Mhm.
So how, to me, what will that OL look like versus Texas? I think that's huge. We know what Quinn Ewers is, right? We know that he's going to be a gamer. We don't know what, I mean, whoever you want to put at quarterback, whether it be Orgy or not, for Michigan, we don't know that. So to kind of wrap up on my end, I know Michigan got a new DC. I was trying to look him up some. He likes to blitz. I think he was like the
Loves
most,
the blitz.
or he was the second most blitz in person in the NFL last year. So they're
Mhm.
gonna bring it. How is Ewers going to look versus that? They're 4-0 against the spread against top 10 teams. Michigan is, and then this is the first time in a row game a top 10 favored team has played since '08. And the last is the under is 12-3. So those 3 combined with the stats that we know, combined with our eyes, you gotta look Texas. I
Mhm.
feel like Texas would win, but I wouldn't play their spread. I'm gonna pick
No.
Texas in our pick'ems, but I
Mhm.
think Michigan covers the spread. I think it's gonna be a lot closer than people give credit.
I think your take on the spread is fantastic. I wouldn't touch the spread. If anything, I would play the under.
Yeah, I think the under
Um,
is where it's at right now.
let's see what the total is real quick. Let me get it pulled up. I can pull it up in a second. But I think I think that the matchup of this game won't be
It's looking like
the
it's 42.5 right now. Opened at 49.5. So
it's already
everybody's been
down to
killing.
42 and a half.
Yeah, everybody's been.
Then then I'm not touching it at 42 and a
Yeah.
half. Not doing that.
I
But
think there's a slight chance Michigan wins, man. I can't pick
yeah,
them because
just
my
it's
eyes
so
are
hard.
Texas.
It's so hard to pick against that defense.
Yeah.
I
Well, and
mean,
they're at home. I mean, you're in the big
yeah,
house,
yeah,
and this isn't a team that they play all the time. I mean,
no.
this is a team that they haven't seen. So there's so many factors, like every week, but
Mhm.
some of some of some of me is pointing Michigan. That's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but that, like you said, that
No,
defense is going to be tough.
I mean, I think that the matchup of this game is the Texas offensive line versus that Michigan front seven. Can
Yeah.
they get push? Can they just consistently run the ball. It don't even have to be 6 to 7 yards a carry. It
Mm.
could be about 4.5 yards per carry. Can they respect the run enough? Well, are you going to make them respect the run enough to where you can challenge that secondary?
I know this that from what I saw of Michigan, talking about the defense, those edge rushers are legit, dude.
They're nasty.
I mean, I know Texas has got some guys,
Yeah.
but those rushers are pretty good. So, you talk about, are they going to be able to run it? That's a good question.
Yeah. So I think that the game comes down to that. And I mean, and I wasn't impressed with the Michigan offense. I think they have a fake ID. I think at
Yeah.
this point in the season they have a fake identity. What, because like they don't know who the quarterback is. It's not really a quarterback dependent offense, but from the way Donovan Edwards looked last week, he honestly wasn't even the best looking back.
Yeah, and I
So,
think that,
which
we
is
hit on the
kind of
OL. I think
concerning.
that's well, I think that's more with the OL. Like I said, you,
Mhm.
you replace 6 guys, and it's one of those things. It's like they got to be meshed. They got it's a 5-for-1 type deal where he's only Edwards is good, and he's going to be good, and he's going to
Mhm.
look fine. But you're also only as good as that OL is going to allow you to be at
Very
times. So
true.
you know you hit on the quarterback deal, and I'm just kind of shocked that Orgy doesn't look better, man. It's from the
He's
things that I was
terrible.
hearing preseason, it looked
He's
like he
awful.
was gonna be all right,
Ah, I just think that was I think that was Michigan kind of trying to cover up
trying to smoke up.
themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
just blow smoke up a bunch of people's butts just to make
yeah,
sure that they kinda got that hype because they know what they have in that quarterback room, and it ain't
yeah,
nothing
and that would
special.
make sense. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would make sense for sure.
So, I mean, I think Texas has the better roster, but I think that Michigan defense is just special. So, I
Right.
think it's gonna keep them in the game, but I think this line opened at 6.5 for a reason. That's with the home environment cooked in, so it's really opened at about 10, which
Yeah.
is tough. I mean, that's tough. So I'm gonna trust Vegas. I'm gonna trust my eyes, and I'm going Texas as well. I'm risking it early. I'm putting them at 10.
Well, this is the game before. I mean, I'm not trying to take forever on it, but this is one of those games that
It's
this
a
is why.
defining game.
Well, this is why I struggle with pick'ems, dude, because I'm like,
The
I feel
spread.
like Texas is gonna win. I feel like Michigan's gonna cover. Well, then I start thinking like, well, if Michigan can cover, they're probably gonna be close. Well, if it's close, then they're gonna win, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all in my
Yeah.
head, they're at home, and I start like making myself believe one or the other. By
Hmm.
eyes, though, I'm with you. I think Texas is just a better team.
Yeah. I'm risking it, putting this game at 10. I'm gonna go out swinging, baby. I'm
There you
already
go.
at the bottom, then you might as well keep on trying.
There you go.
This is a game that's kind of getting slept on in the South just because it's Colorado versus Nebraska. It's not really something we pay that much attention to down here. This is a big rivalry. This is a big game. You have Deion Sanders taking that, what I believe is a clown show, on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska to face Matt Rule. These two coaches, they are both in their second year with the programs. Cornhuskers true freshman quarterback Dylan Rayola, who had a pretty solid game last week. I mean, I'm I'm going Huskers here. I
Yeah.
I am going the team with the better defense. I'm going the team with the home crowd. And I think I'm going to go with the team with the better coach, with the better offensive scheme, with a guy who's an absolute vet when it comes to the coaching scene. And I think he's going to have the Cornhuskers ready. And I think they're going to win the ball game. And the I think that the Buffs are just going to get worn down. There's only so much that Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Horn can do.
Hmm.
And I think the Huskers win. Close one.
It's hard to argue that, man. I mean, I like Matt Rule. I think he is going to be jam up. Nebraska looks tough, especially you talk about Dylan Raiola and what he did. I look at on the other side, just kind of looking at Colorado. Sanders has had 400 plus yards and 4 touchdowns in 3 games. Like that is insane.
Mhm.
Second most in school history. So obviously he's going to break school history this year. Travis Hunter is an absolute unicorn.
He's so
I mean,
good.
versatile, like unbelievable. I mean, he's the dude. Okay, he had 3 touchdowns. You mentioned Jimmy Horn. I don't think me and you know this. Maybe a couple people that watch the show. I think Logan may know, or a couple others, but the average person doesn't know who Jimmy Horn is, and
He's
he's
good.
really good. I mean, he's
Yeah.
good. He had almost 200 yards last week. So, which is, I think I was reading it. It's like the 3rd most since 25 years for a
Mhm.
Buffalo wide receiver. But anyways, I look at them, and they do have talent. I worry about their OL. Last year Sanders was sacked like 52 times, second most
Awful.
in the college football. But they only gave up 1 sack last week. So I'm like, is it a weaker opponent? Or are they actually better? I mean, they got rid of some guys, brought some
It's
guys
probably
in.
a combination of both.
Yes, it's hard to tell. But Nebraska had 32 sacks last year, which is top 40, and 8 of them came against Colorado last year. So basically,
Mhm.
what 25%, 25% of your sacks came against this team. So
Yeah.
that's something that you look at, and it's like, is that going to be a play? Because if the O line's better for Colorado, you're good. If they're
Mhm.
not, it's going to show this game for sure. And
And
then
just how bad that defense is.
oh yeah, they're terrible. They're awful. I
Yeah.
think our Pick'ems group could probably do better than that. But
I don't
I
know
look
about
at I look at Nebraska, man, and we hit on Dylan Raiola coming in. I think this is a big game for him. You're going
Mhm.
to find out what you have with him. Last week they had 17 plays of 10 plus yards, which is like 30% of their offense,
Yeah.
and I think they had 27% of their completion rates were 20 yards plus. So they're wanting to throw it. But
Yeah.
I think the way to win this game, man, if I'm Nebraska, you got to keep the ball out of Sanders' hands, right? Like,
Mhm.
we got to keep it away from you. I'm not trying to, you know, play a Tennessee offense where I'll score and then you score, and no.
Mhm.
You got to slow it down and you talked about up front, like,
You
you've
have to
got to
be efficient.
prove you
Mhm.
have to prove that my line's better than yours. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to make you wait. Basically, is how I
Mhm.
feel if I'm Nebraska. And if push comes to shove, then you use Dylan and use him to create. But I think that's what it's going to come down to: is Nebraska going to be patient enough to kind of play possession? And if they
Mhm.
can, you're in a way better spot. But I still think Nebraska is a better team. I will be picking Nebraska. They're favored for a reason. They're at home, sellout crowd, all this. But I'm going with my eyes. And you can have 2 or 3 studs on one side, but I think as a whole, Nebraska's better.
Mhm. Picking the Huskers. I think I got this game about like 6, I think.
Yeah, I
So
think I've got it fairly
I'm
high, but
kinda I'm kinda confident that the Huskers are just gonna be able to physically kinda dominate this game and be able to make the plays that they need to win.
yeah, but this is if I had to like second guess myself like I do. One of the things I
This would
think
be a game
about,
I'd second guess on, yeah.
well, I think like, okay, how is Vegas thinking? Because they know Colorado played really well last week. They know
Mhm.
they know that people are high on Colorado. Hey, we want to see
Mhm.
Dion, this, that, and the third. And if they see him as an underdog, they're going to want people to bet on him, right? So it's almost
Mhm.
like
That is true.
kind of feeling, but Nebraska's a pick for me.
Yeah. I think that's a good pick, man. A team I'm high on. A team I'm real high on because of their quarterback. I think he has a chance to be the best quarterback in the nation. Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee, 9.5-point favorites, going to a neutral site in Charlotte to play
Ugh.
the Wolfpack, to play NC State. I mean, in the Duke's Mayo Classic. I think this is a real interesting game. I think it's going to be the toughest test for Nico so far. I mean, he's only started for 3 games, but I mean, I think this Tennessee offense is just going to have too much for what is historically been under Dave Doran a really stout NC State defense. I mean, so I think that'll be a real interesting matchup. And then can that Tennessee defense? I think that's where the game's going to be won. Is I wasn't impressed with Grayson McCall last week. He just kind of had that breakout season in 2020.
Dude, for a guy to have 4 or 10,000 yards, he didn't look like it last week.
No, he had that breakout season in 2020, and then ever since then he's just kind of lived off of that hype. I think. I heard a comparison that he had a limp noodle of an arm. That's a comparison that I heard from him last week. So I think that's where this game's truly going to be won. I think that the Tennessee defense is going to be able to get pressure on him. I think he's going to be able to. I think he's going to be going to make mistakes, and I just think it's going to be. He's just going to get overwhelmed. And I think that Tennessee defense is going to shut that NC State offense down. And then I think that's going to give a chance for Nico to really put the pedal to the metal. And then once this NC State team has to start playing catch up, then it's all over.
Yeah. So ranked matchup. I have some stats just because I'm a numbers guy and I like stats.
Me with them, brother.
It's college football. So before Hypo got there, okay, 08 to 2020, they're 9-52 versus ranked opponents.
That's gross.
Since Hypos came in, they're 8-8. So pretty big difference. I mean, it's small sample size, but pretty big difference. SEC's 14-12 versus the ACC. But if you looked at ranked versus ranked, they're 5-1. So that one loss is the LSU Florida State game that we mentioned how Florida State was just a better team, right? When I break some of this stuff down, man, you look at time of possession, right? Every time I think of Tennessee, I think of time of possession. They're going to score. Since Hypo got there, they averaged 26.2 seconds snap to snap average. That's the fastest in college football. So they led it. Now this year specifically is showing 25.8, which is even faster. NC State is literally like so far from that. It's incredible. Like they are like night and day. I think I have it here. They are. So time of possession is 25 minutes. So only Old Dominion holds the ball less than Tennessee. Basically, fastest team. Go. NC State is holding it 39 seconds snap to snap. So 25, 39 snap to snap, which is a 111th in the country. So basically what I say with that is they are two different teams. And this is going to come down to who's going to play their game better. Is NC State going to hold the ball, or is Tennessee going to say, you can't do nothing, give us the ball. Okay, you can't do nothing, give us the ball. And I think, you were high on Nico before the season. Last week he looked incredible.
He looked great.
I will say this. Now I've got some stats on him too. So from 2 starts, because that's all he's had is 2 starts. He's had 9 pressure attempts. So he's went 3 for 9, which is about, that's not terrible. I wouldn't say that's great. So he's got a 22% off target rate with those. He's been blitzed 11 times. He went 4 for 11 with off target of 36.4. So that tells me he hasn't been pressured a lot. Now, NC State, can you get that? Can you get that DL to play good? They had 2 sacks last week, and one of them was the last play of the game. So it's not like they're coming. You know what I mean? And the biggest thing is, if you cannot pressure Nico,
he's going to eat
a bad day.
He's going to eat your lunch. It's
going to be a bad day. And then, some of the other things I look at as far as Tennessee goes, like that DL is, I think it may be top 5 in the country. Like I don't love Tennessee. Brother. They are freaks. So they're going to bring pressure. We talked about Grayson McCall, and as bad as he looked, I will say, like, I still wanted him when he was in the, they were talking about him hitting the portal and this, that, and the third. I liked what I saw before, but last week, man, he just didn't look good. And, when you got, you got more talent around you, right, at NC State, but you also
Mhm.
are facing better talent. You got James Pierce that's going to be there in a split second. So
Breathing down your neck.
it's hard for me to feel like NC State is going to have enough to overcome that offense. It's hard for
Mhm.
me to feel like a lot of teams are going to be able to overcome that offense.
Mhm.
But when you look at one and the other, if it's a lot harder to get them out of rhythm than it would be for the reverse. And what I mean is it's going to be a lot harder for NC State to slow Tennessee down rather than Tennessee flipped and
Mhm.
make them can't get off the field. So
Yeah.
I feel good with Tennessee.
So do I.
I don't think Squirrel Wright, Brew McCoy, Deontay Thornton, or Holden State that came from Notre Dame. Notre Dame, he torched them last year when Notre Dame played NC State, so he's probably
Mhm.
going to be a problem. You got four guys that are you can't match them all,
Yeah.
and the way Heupel runs that offense, I say all that to say I don't think it's going to be a game, man. If NC State looks anything like they did last week, it's going to be bad.
It's gonna be an absolute roasting of the Wolfpack. I'm putting this game at a 9.
I think I'm going to put it high too.
Yeah.
I just everything points to Tennessee, and I think Heupel's a really good coach. I think he knows what he's doing. And I think he's trying to, we didn't talk a lot about Tennessee for the most part, as far as
I
like
did.
scary teams or this, that, and the third,
I did.
media wise. I know you've been high on them, but like media's not pressing them like they have been in the past.
No.
They're pressing Georgia, they're pressing Texas, they're pressing Ole Miss. Like
Alabama.
they
Oh,
weren't saying nothing about Tennessee, and I think Heupel is saying that's fine. Keep us under the
please.
radar, and then when you
Mhm.
play us, it's going to be a problem. And
We gonna smoke you.
I know it's a rival, but I,
They're
it's hard to
good.
point to stuff that Tennessee's doing that isn't good. So
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty, my friend. We got 7 more games. We're just gonna go through kind of rapid fire here as
let's
we
do it.
get wrapped up for the rest of the pick'ems. Iowa State, Iowa. Iowa's a 3-point favorite. It opened up at about 2.5. They're up to 3 now. Who wins the Cyhawk
Give me
matchup?
Iowa State. I think
Ooh.
Iowa played well, but I'm going Iowa State.
I'm going Iowa just because I think that defense is gonna be able to shut that Iowa State offense down. It is a very hyped up Iowa State team. My my heart wants Iowa State to win because I hate Iowa, but my head says Iowa. I'm
Iowa's
choosing
a better team for
the
sure.
Hawkeyes. Yeah. So I'm choosing the Hawkeyes at home in a rivalry game. It's always really gritty. It always comes down to some stupid, crazy play. And I also always pick this game wrong every single year.
Dude, I've got a couple teams. Iowa State's one of them. I feel like Wisconsin another one. If Wisconsin's ever on, if I pick
You
with
always
them,
pick 'em
they'll
wrong.
lose. If I
Yeah.
pick against them, they'll win for sure.
Mine's mine's always Iowa and it's always Boise State and it's always BYU. Those 3 teams, I
Yeah.
cannot pick their games right. For the
Apparently,
history,
I can't pick Florida games right.
damn. For the 10 years of this pick'ems, I've never been able to pick those games at
Well,
all.
hopefully you'll be right about that one.
Yes, sir. Cal making the return trip down to the plains from my Auburn Tigers, baby. Auburn opened up at about an 11.5-point favorite. They're all the way up to 13. I don't think this is going to be a contest. I think we're going to see Auburn try to implement some more stuff like they did last week, really show off that throwing game. And I think Jarquez Hunter is going to kind of eat too. This was a really gritty, nasty game last year, but I think Auburn finds a way to win. I think Auburn will win by, I think Auburn covers. Yeah.
I'm high on Auburn, and what I mean by high is, everybody was saying Thorne sucks, this, that, and the third. They showed last week that they're a force. I look at the game last year and I thought they were going to beat the piss out of Cal. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I know we got new receivers. I know we got, a Thorne that's more comfortable and
A better
a
offensive
way
line.
better running back, a more meshed offensive line. It feels like 100% Auburn should coast. I do
Mhm.
worry that Cal is, going to hang in there for a minute, but I definitely got Auburn winning.
Yeah. And I mean, that was just a weird, really weird game last year. You're on the road. It's almost a 10 o'clock local kick at Auburn. So, I mean, just a really, really weird game. But, I mean, I think Auburn handles business at home. Arkansas going to Oklahoma State. I think this is a really slept on game. This is in the
Yeah, it
noon
is.
slot. I
Yeah, it
mean,
is.
you have Sam Pittman in Arkansas. I think he's on the hot seat as well.
Oh
Going
yeah.
on the road into what I think is an underrated environment. Really cool stadium, Boone Pickens. And I mean, I just think that Oklahoma State's going to be too much with that run game, with the offensive line, with Ollie Gordon at the running back. But I could see Arkansas winning
I
this
could too.
game.
Yeah.
But I think Oklahoma State's the better team. I think they're the more deep team. I think they're the more physical team. So I'm going with the more physical team at home. Super low. I think I'm going to put this
Mhm.
at like 2 or 3. But I'm
Mhm.
going Cowboys.
I got so many stats on this one, and I know we're running out of time, but it
Hit me
is
with them,
really
stat man.
well. If you deep dive this game, I didn't know it was going to be as interesting as it was. I knew it
Oh,
was
yeah.
going to be fun, but you look and like they're only 200 miles apart, but they've only played like they haven't played since like 1980.
That's really weird.
It's crazy to me, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like 4-41 in Stillwater. Arkansas is like in history, so
Yeah.
they don't have a good history of winning there, but there's been close games. Then you got
Mhm.
Taylor Green, the quarterback from Boise State, transferring. He looked pretty good. You got you hit on the hot seat. You got Arkansas 4-0 against the spread as a road dog, like in the last four.
Okay.
You got you hit on Ollie Gordon and how good he is. I mean, he's incredible. And then
Stud.
I look at Arkansas missed tackles, and Ollie Gordon is a freaking missed tackling machine. Like he's gonna make you miss.
Hell
It's
yeah.
gonna be good, dude. I think I'm with you. Like I think my heart says Oklahoma State, like that they're the better team, but I could see Arkansas winning for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. For sure. Now, what I think is the worst team in the SEC.
Uh-oh.
South Carolina goes on the road to Kentucky. Only an 8.5 point spread. I was not impressed with the Gamecocks last week, almost losing to Old Dominion at home.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Nasty stuff. So I'm going with the Cats. I'm going with Mark Stoops.
I think I think Kentucky is the better team. I'm not sold on picking them yet because
Mm-hmm.
I need to do
Ooh,
some more digging. So
dig.
6 meetings since 1937. South Carolina's won the last two. South Carolina's 2-10 on SEC road games the last five. 2-10 on SEC road games, and they've lost the last five. Um, Kentucky, man, they're. I guess it depends on who you play. Like you watch them last year, and they beat the piss out of Florida, but they can't beat other teams, and
Yeah.
they allow 30 points per game in the last like six games, which was tied for the most in the SEC. The pass defense is allowed 68% completion rate for other QBs. So
Mhm.
the DBs and the safeties, you're going to be able to throw the ball. Now, when I look at South Carolina, can they throw the ball? I don't
I don't
know.
think so.
Uh, I mean, last year it's hard because you lose Spencer Rattler and some of those receivers. So last year they threw the ball 64% of the time. So
Mhm.
that means like 36% of the time they're rushing it, right, which is 10th lowest in FBS. So last year it was clear they want to throw the ball. They only
Mhm.
topped 150 yards once, which was against Florida. Imagine that. Um, but so last week you look at the same exact team. I mean, it's South Carolina without Spencer Rattler, and they ran for 61% of the offense, ran for 174 yards, which is more than any game last season. So it tells me that okay, yeah, we
They're
know it's a
having an
different team,
identity
but
shift.
they're finding an identity that's different. So that comes with Arkansas running back. I mean, you got Rocket Sanders coming over, and
Mhm.
he's a baller. 2022, he had like 1,500 yards, which was second in the SEC that year. So to say all that, I say all that. Two new quarterbacks. I mean, Brock's not
Mhm.
new, but he's new to the. I mean, he
System.
hasn't started. Um, who's going to come out, who's going to look better. You look at coaches. The only thing that's throwing me off with South Carolina before we wrap up is the special teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a Florida fan, special teams matter to me, and everybody's going to joke because we had special team problems last year. But Urban Meyer was extremely detailed on special teams, and he knew that that's a way to win the game. It's not just offense, defense; it's special teams. You look at special teams under Beamer. Their efficiency is 9th in college football last 4 years. So they're top 10 in special teams efficiency. They hit 91% of their field goals. That's number one in the country.
That's kind of bad.
That's number one. They've blocked 15 kicks since 2021. That's
kind of nasty.
Dude, he is. I know his dad was big on special teams. He's big on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say it kind of like tweaks my mind a little bit. I kind of got to make sure, like, is Kentucky going to be able to, do what he wants? But also hitting on South Carolina, Dylan Stewart, dude. That's the only thing that I took away from the South Carolina game was Dylan Stewart is a freaking freak. The dude is incredible. Top
Tell
recruit.
me about it.
He was a top recruit for them last year coming out. He's a DN. If you haven't watched him, go freaking watch his highlight. He is literally, Gus, he is bulldozing the tackle with one hand and going to grab the quarterback with the other as a freshman. Like, he's a freak.
That's what we like to see in the SEC, baby.
Right. So how much impact is he going to have, against Kentucky? Last thing, South Carolina's 4-1 against the spread. The last 5 as double-digit dogs. 2 of them are outright wins. But that's what Spencer Rattler. They beat Tennessee. They beat Clemson. I think this is a game that it's going to be low scoring. I think if I was to play this game, I'd play the under.
Yes.
And then I'm going Kentucky. I think
with
Brock
all that being said about South Carolina, I'm
yeah. I was trying to boost them up. I think Kentucky's got too much. I think the lines are good. I think the coach is better. I think you got me excited. Brock, I think Brock is athletic. I think he can push the ball. He's got some scary times about him. Like, if you watch him, it seems like he's forcing some things, but I know that'll get ironed out. I just think Kentucky's a better team.
I do as well. We got some last 3 games that, I don't think they'll be on the national radar, but I think they have some significance to them. Kansas going on the road to Illinois, the Fighting Illini. I think Kansas, even though they lost Andy Kotelnicki, they still looked like they had the same identity on the offensive side of the ball. I think they have the better quarterback in this game. That boy Jalen Daniels, when he's healthy, he's
that was another name that you're pretty quick on before most was Daniels. I think
if he's healthy, he's one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch in the nation.
Right. And I do think they're the better team. They do kind of scare me, though. I think
just a tad inconsistent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is they're going to be on the road, and then they've been kind of inconsistent as far as, just hit or miss. But Brett Bielema knows what he's doing too, and it's like I like him a lot. I think he knows how to coach these bigger games up, and to me, this is a bigger game for Illinois.
It is.
I think I'm going to go Illinois, but it's kind of a coin flip for me. I could see either team winning. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Illinois.
I think I'm going to go Kansas. I'm going to stick with my boy, JD, in this one. Georgia Tech versus Syracuse. This game freaks me out.
This is one that I'm just going to close my eye. Whichever one that
this is the game that you hold your nose, you close your eyes, you hit a button, and you ride
just go with it.
You
just go with it. Yeah.
I think a bunch of people will say, "Oh, well, you have to pick Georgia Tech because they beat Florida State. Florida State sucks.
Bad.
I
mean, that's just facts.
Bad. But I do think Georgia Tech has showed improvement under Brent Key, and I think they're going to continue to show improvement. They're a team with an identity. They know who they are. They know how they want to play, and they go out there and they play that way. So I mean, it's on the road. It's in what used to be the Carrier Dome. I mean, this is a coin flip game, and I'm just going Tech just for the fun of it.
See, I feel the same. It's definitely a coin flip game. I think Georgia Tech's improved. I think Brent Key knows what he's doing. I think if I had to pick a roster, give me Tech. There's so many things I could point to, but because that line, I'm looking. Sometimes, man, you just kind of say like that doesn't look right to me, and
Yeah,
that line doesn't look right to me. And I
it
think
looks weird.
Vegas is going to play on Tech beat FSU. They beat a top 10 team. And
Mhm.
for that reason, I'm picking Syracuse. Not because I think they're truly going to win. I'm picking Syracuse because I think that line's wrong.
That's not a bad pick at all. I mean, I truly don't know who's going to win
It's
this
got to
game.
be low. I mean, we can't
Yeah.
put it too high.
No. I believe I'm putting this game at 2, and I'm putting this game at 1, Duke
God,
versus
dog, dude.
Northwestern on a Friday night
Another this don't look right line.
on the shores of I believe it's Lake Michigan. I ain't too good with my geography of my Great Lakes, but this game is nasty. This is a battle of the nerds. I believe we coined it the Nerd Bowl.
Nerd ball.
The Nerd Bowl. I mean, I'm going Northwestern here just
Are you?
because. Yes,
Dude,
I'm
I've went back and forth.
I'm
I
going the
really like Duke.
ultimate nerds. I'm going ultimate nerds, but I could honestly change this Saturday morning.
I really
I mean,
like Duke.
I
I'm
mean,
just
I
not
could change this
understanding
tomorrow
why
morning.
it's down to Northwest, which Duke opened as a favorite, but
They opened it as a 2.5-point favorite, and it shifted.
it
all
swung
the
a
way.
lot. So
Yeah.
is that sharp money that's like, hey, you don't know what you're doing, or I don't know. I like Duke. I like, I mean they didn't look the best Saturday.
Mm-mm.
I guess I'll say this, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know the most about Northwestern. I
Me
know a good
either.
bit about Duke. I feel like from what I've seen, Duke should be the better team, but I also haven't seen Northwestern. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna do some more research on this. I probably am gonna pick Duke, but it's another one of those like why is the line like this type
Yeah.
games.
I mean, this game doesn't hold much significance for the pick'ems because I can already tell you either way that I end up going, I'm putting it at 1
Oh
because
yeah, for sure.
there's no way I can put this many points in just teams I don't know that much about. So
Right.
either way, I'm going 1. I think I'm gonna go with the Wildcats in their origami stadium that got thrown up on the shores of Lake Michigan. Dude, so the wind, they say the wind that comes off of the lake
Mm,
is insane.
I
Like
could see it.
because the lakes act more like oceans.
Mm,
So just think if you had to play a football game on the
near the
shores
ocean.
of an ocean
Yeah.
of just random gusts coming in. And it's already in Chicago. Well, it's a little north of Chicago. It's already in a very windy city.
Yeah.
So you're
I
going
just
from
I'm with you. It's just gonna be low. I
it's
don't
just a
really.
weird game.
I'm gonna try to research it, but that didn't really mean anything most days.
Dude, I am excited for week 2, even though I have to work this whole entire weekend. You best believe Imma have my iPad up and
That
working on things.
sucks.
It sucks. Imma have my iPad up. I'm gonna have my phone up. So I'm still gonna have a couple games and I'm gonna be watching while I can. Dude, but it's always great getting to talk some college football with you. We will be back next week to break down what happened in week 2 and look forward to week 3. College football season's here, man. This is the most wonderful time of the year, besides Christmas, of course. But man, Cody, it was a pleasure, and I will talk to you next week, my friend.
Definitely, man. Definitely.